All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Conference Championship weekend in college football is here, and we are set for what I think are going to be some dandies of some contests, a lot of college football playoff implications on the line, a lot of New Year's Six implications on the line as well. And I think when it's all said and done, when these contests are over with, people are still going to be doing talking. Why? Because you got so many teams right now that are vying for four spots, just four spots in the illustrious college football playoff. So let's see A, who's going to take care of their business this weekend, and B, let's see who's going to get to that field of four. And I'm going to start off tomorrow with the Conference USA Championship game, as you got New Mexico State traveling to take on 24th ranked Liberty for the Flames. They come into this contest favored by 11, and they're looking to keep that dream season going as they're undefeated right now. But it's a rematch because we've already seen Liberty beat New Mexico State back in September 33-17. But this New Mexico State squad, which New Mexico State squad are we going to get? Are we going to get the New Mexico State team that lost to UMass, or are we going to get the team that beat Auburn by 21 points at Jordan Hare? We got to wait and see. Nonetheless, New Mexico State has a good squad led by quarterback Caden Salter and running back Quentin Cooley. He's going to need to have a good game if New Mexico State's going to pull off the upset of Liberty here. Linebacker Tyron Dupree, can he and his cohorts on defense be able to slow down this Liberty offense? We got to wait and see. Diego Prava at quarterback for Liberty. He's calm, cool, and collected, and he's been battle tested. And then you got linebacker Keyshawn Elliott leading this defense. I look at it like this. Liberty is going to win this game. I think they pull away in the fourth quarter, but nonetheless, New Mexico State is going to give them a run for their money. However, I'm going to take the Flames by the score of 37-27. Now, tomorrow night in the Pac-12, in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, it's going to be electric there, but it's also going to be sad because I've talked about this for a long time. It didn't have to be like this. Bad leadership, no unity, you name it. But the Pac-12, at least as what we know it, is not going to exist. And it's unfortunate because for the first time in a long time, we know that the Pac-12 is going to have a seat in the field of four in the college football playoff. Why? Because you've got fifth ranked Oregon taking on third ranked Washington. So whoever wins this game, obviously, if a Washington wins, that means they would have beaten Oregon twice this season. They're already ranked three. They're not falling. And Oregon, obviously, if they win, they're moving up. To me, this is the most anticipated rematch of this college football season. And you can honestly make a legit case and say, hey, this might be the most anticipated conference championship game this weekend. We've got a top five battle. Of course, these two met earlier this season in Seattle. It was a thriller, one of the most watched games of the season as well. And Washington escaped with the 3-point win. Now, in spite of all of that, in spite of the fact that the Huskies come to Vegas with an unblemished record, okay, they are the underdog, and they're not just an underdog. The odds makers in Vegas don't like this team. Oregon comes in as a 10-point favorite, and I guarantee you that Washington head coach Kalen DeBoer is has been and will continue to preach that to his team up until game time, and honestly through the contest. It's a disrespect factor for Washington. They've been winning, but it hasn't been with style points, and I get it. But even coming down the stretch here, the Huskies are still battle tested. You go back a couple of weeks ago in Corvallis, they were able to fend off a darn good um, Oregon State team. A couple of weeks before that, going to the Coliseum and getting by USC. Actually put up 52 points. I know the Trojans' defense ain't good, but nonetheless, the Huskies still went there and handled their business. And then last week in the Apple Cup, and you could say whatever you want. When you play your rival, you throw the rule book out the window, especially with so much going on with Washington State and Washington and the battle for the Pac-12 right now. But nonetheless, the Huskies will take the field with an unblemished record tomorrow night. But on the flip side for Oregon, ever since that loss to Washington, they have been destroying every team that they have faced. And this is why a lot of people, myself included, feel that Oregon could be the most dangerous team that still has a shot to win the national championship. They've been so fluid on offense with quarterback Bo Nix and Bucky Irving at running back, and then Troy Franklin. And then this SEC type defense that Dan Lanning, of course, former Georgia defensive coordinator, has been coaching up. Will they be able to slow down Michael Penix Jr. and company? And for me, I look at this matchup between this Oregon defense and this Washington offense. Washington and Michael Penix Jr., they've got to get going early. Lately, we've seen from Washington, they've had too many slow starts, and you cannot have a slow start against this Oregon team. One thing's for sure, there will be plenty of athletes on the field in this one from both sides. I mean, you look at Roman Dunze and Jalen Polk, the best or one of the best wide receiver duos, and arguably the best wide receiver duo in the nation. And I know that a lot of people are talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State as far as his playmaking ability at wide receiver. And honestly, they're all right. But, Roman Dunze is no slouch either. So I'm looking at the matchup with the Washington receivers going up against this Oregon secondary. It's going to be big. Dominique Hampton and company on defense for UW. Can they find a way to slow down this Oregon offense? We got to wait and see. For this contest, I think it's going to be a lot closer than what the odds makers are giving Washington credit for. And I really am going to put the onus on the defenses and the offenses. I say that as far as who is going to bend but not break. And I mean that because once you get into the red zone defensively, can you make the necessary plays to stop your opponent from scoring a touchdown? Can you make those necessary plays to force your opponent to make field goals? That's going to be the biggest thing. Like I said, this is going to be closer than I think the odds makers are giving Washington credit for, but I still like Oregon in this one. And I'm going to take the Ducks, who lost earlier this season by 3 to the Huskies, to win by 3, 34-31. Now, moving ahead to Saturday, you got the Big 12 championship game in Arlington, as you got 7th ranked Texas getting it on with the 18th ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. Very intriguing game here, as Oklahoma State is looking to play spoiler in Texas's Big 12 farewell. And I guarantee you that Big 12 Commissioner Brent Yormark would love to have Oklahoma State send Texas out of the Big 12 with a loss, but it's going to be easier said than done. The Longhorns will take the field on Saturday as 15.5 point favorites. And one thing's for sure, for Oklahoma State to pull off the upsets, they've got to click, because Oklahoma State is another one of those teams. They're very tough to figure out. Which Cowboy team are we going to get? The one who got blown out by at home by South Alabama, or the one that stood up and beat Oklahoma in the final Bedlam game, or the Oklahoma State team that turned right around after Bedlam and went to UCF and got blown out? So for the Cowboys to go out there and pull off this upset, they've got to control the football and they've got to run the football effectively with Ollie Gordon II. Why? Because if the Cowboys are able to consistently run the football and move the chains, guess what? That Texas offense is on the sideline and they're drinking water. So they can't affect you if they're sitting on the sideline. So that means Oklahoma State's really got to get their offense going. Linebacker Nicholas Martin for the Cowboys. What can he do against the likes of running back C.J. Baxter? You got Quinn Ewers back at quarterback for the Longhorns. And of course, with number 3 there, things have been looking a lot better for Texas. Texas, to me, is a very intriguing team because I look at them And sometimes it almost seems like they play to the level of their competition. We saw Texas get up for Alabama in a big way, but then we've seen Texas sleepwalk at times throughout the Big 12. I think Steve Sarkisian will have his team ready to go Saturday afternoon, and because of that, I'm going to take the Longhorns over the Cowboys by the score of 34-20. Now in Detroit, downtown Detroit City, you're going to have the MAC championship as you're going to have Miami of Ohio getting it on with Toledo. And hands down, these are the two best teams in the American Conference. No bones about it. It's another rematch from the regular season. We saw Toledo get the best of Miami of Ohio earlier. And for Miami of Ohio to go out there and pull off the upset because they're 8-point underdogs to the Rockets, running back Rashad Amos has got to get it going. He's got to be another one to consistently move those chains and keep this Toledo offense on the sidelines. But then this Miami of Ohio defense as well, with linebacker Matt Solopek and Caden Woolard on that defensive line. Can they disrupt the rhythm of this Toledo offense? And for Toledo, they lost their regular season opener barely on the road against the Fighting Illini out of the Big Ten. Ever since then, they have run roughshod over everybody. You got to love what you're seeing so far from Toledo this season with quarterback Daquan Finn and running back Penny Boone. But then they can get after you defensively as well with the likes of defensive tackle Judge Culpepper and linebacker Dallas Gant. Toledo is the best team in the MAC, and I think they hold serve on Saturday by the score of 34-24. Now, in the Mountain West Conference, and I think that this is something that everybody, not just college football, but college football fans as well, need to pay attention to because we got Boise State and UNLV getting it on Saturday in Vegas in the Mountain West Championship game. But the computer decided this matchup because we had three teams atop the Mountain West finish with the same record conference wise: Boise State, UNLV, and San Jose State. And matter of fact, San Jose State just beat UNLV last week, but what did they get for their troubles? They're not going to have an opportunity to go to the conference championship game. And I think this is something that we should all focus on. Why? Because the Mountain West, like all other conferences around football, college football, they are and they have done away with the divisional format. And now it's just a free for all. And I think it's only going to get worse, with the likes of the Big 12 having 16 teams, the pardon me, I almost said Pac 12, the Big 10 having 18 teams, the SEC having 16 teams. Why? Because guess what? You're not going to face everybody, obviously, throughout that season. So I guarantee you it's going to happen. You're going to have teams that finish with the same conference record, and then somebody's going to get denied an opportunity to play for a conference championship game just based off of a record. And if somebody misses out on the college football playoff, which is going to happen sooner rather than later, somebody is going to be in an uproar, and rightfully so. So I think this is something that we got to pay attention to going forward. Nonetheless, you got a Boise State team that has lost three out of the last four Mountain West championship games, and obviously they don't want to make it four out of the last five. They're 2-0, the Broncos are, since Spencer Danielson has been the interim head coach. For the Broncos, Ashton Genty and this running game is where it's at. And if he's not going for the Broncos, they don't have a chance. Defensive end Ahmed Hassanin, him and company up front for Boise State. Can they slow down the rhythm of this UNLV offense? We got to wait and see. But speaking of UNLV, what a turnaround that it has been in year number one for Barry Odom with the Rebels. This guy can flat out coach. I don't think that he got enough credit when he was at Missouri. Granted, Eli Drinkwitz has taken that program to another level, but nonetheless, Barry Odom can coach, and I think he's got a good opportunity to build something here in UNLV. Quarterback Jaden Mayava has been solid throughout Mountain West play. Wide receiver Ricky White is one of the biggest and more explosive playmakers at the position in the conference. And then keep an eye out for linebacker Jackson Woodard. I think this is going to be a back and forth nip and tuck affair, but I'm going to give Boise the slight edge on the road, 26-20. Now, I've talked about this game being the granddaddy of them all. when it comes to conference championship games. I've been talking about that for years now, and I'm going to stick with that. I'm talking about the contest, the showdown rather, in Atlanta. I'm talking about the SEC championship game, and you got the number one team in the land and the two-time defending national champions in the Georgia Bulldogs getting it on with the eighth ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. The Dogs come into this game favored by 5.5 points as they are looking to get back to the college football playoff and defend their crown. But obviously, the Tide are looking to get to the playoff, and they're also looking to pull off the upset. And it's amazing. And the reason why I say it is this: Alabama's ranked eighth in the nation. And very rarely do you get a team that is overshadowed out of a power conference like Alabama, having the reputation and the tradition of Alabama, and they come into this contest with a record of 11-1, and nobody's really talking about them. And you look at Alabama this season, ever since that Texas loss. It's been a workmanlike approach, but the Tide have gotten better, and the Tide have gone out there and taken care of their business. And you look, it starts with Nick Saban, their head coach, of course, but then you look at this defense. It's 17th in the nation. They have guys to get after you. You look at Jihad Campbell, Deontay Lawson, Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell, and Terry and Arnold. The Tide, they just have depth at each level of their defense. And that is what you need to win a conference championship and possibly get to the college football playoff. Now, offensively, Jalen Milroe is a winner. He just finds a way to go out there and make plays. And I think that final drive against Auburn in the Iron Bowl last week just gives you an example of how much that this young man has improved from the start of the season until now. And I guarantee you that the coaches and his players and the Alabama community, I guarantee you that they have confidence in this young man that he can lead them. Can he find Jermaine Burton on the outside going up against this staunch and tough Georgia secondary? That's going to be a key. Now, typically in years past, we've said, you know what? Georgia really didn't get tested a lot throughout the season. This time around, they did. They survived an earlier test on the road against Auburn, another rivalry game. You think to the fact that Georgia had to do it for a little bit without All American tight end Brock Bowers. Then on top of that, they got a scare from Missouri, having to go to Knoxville, and they dominated a darn good Tennessee team. Then on top of that, Georgia Tech gave Georgia all that they can handle and then some. And I know obviously Georgia Tech has been down on their luck for some time, and the Bulldogs have dominated this series with the Yellow Jackets dating back to the time of Mark Richt was the head coach. But nonetheless, Georgia was able to survive that. And, I talked about Jalen Milroe improving as the season has gone along. Same can be said about the youngster at quarterback for Georgia and Carson Beck. You still got a solid running game for the Bulldogs and head coach Kirby Smart with the likes of Kendall Milton and Dejon Edwards. And then the Dogs still got the ninth ranked defense in the nation with Smile Munden and company. It's the student versus the teacher, of course, with the coaches, with Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. But for me, I look at it like this: as dominant as Georgia has been over the last couple of years, I really, truly feel that there is only one team in college football that can beat them. It's Alabama. And for me, I'm looking at this. This could be one of those prototypical championship type years for Nick Saban, because I say that they start off and they're shaky. They get the loss, and then they turn around. He gets this team's focus more, and they just go out there and flat out ball. And we've had a situation where Alabama has had a couple of dominating wins, but for the most part, they've been workmanlike wins. But then I go back to last season. I go back to the college football national championship game last year, when, of course, Alabama didn't make the playoff. Two heartbreaking losses is what prevented them from getting there. But think seeing Nick Saban on that panel at ESPN and the comments that former ESPN analyst David Pollock made as far as Georgia taking over, and then on top of that, so many people wanting to write off Alabama, saying Nick Saban's old, Nick Saban can't do this, Nick Saban can't do that. I guarantee you, there are so many programs around the nation that would love to say, you know what, we went 11-2 and that was an off year for us, like Alabama did last year. And the fact that nobody is talking about the Crimson Tide at 11-1, I guarantee you Nick Saban's going to have his team ready to go. Uh, a Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta is going to be buzzing, and I think Alabama shakes up the apple cart and really throws a monkey wrench into the college football playoffs, standings. I'm going to take the Tide in the upset on Saturday by the score of 24-23. Now, moving to the American Athletic Conference Championship game, you have the departing SMU Mustangs taking on 22nd ranked Tulane. And for Tulane and the Green Wave, they're looking to make it consecutive American championships. You have a veteran quarterback in Michael Pratt. You have another stud in at running back in Mekhi Hughes, who replaces Tyjai Spears, who is now in the NFL with the Tennessee Titans. Linebacker Jesus Machado can bring it, as can Darius Hodge on this defensive line. And they're taking on an SMU team that is looking to win their first conference championship in nearly 40 years, dating back to the old Southwest Conference. Quarterback Preston Stone, can he get into a rhythm against this Tulane defense? And then the defensive end Elijah Roberts, what is he going to do against this Tulane offense? We got to wait and see. SMU will be game, but Tulane is the better squad. And because of that, I'm going to take the Green Wave by the score of 34-24. Now, on to the Sun Belt Championship. As you got App State clashing with Troy, and the Trojans come into this contest favored by 5.5 points, and they as well are looking to make it consecutive Sun Belt titles. For Troy, you got a solid quarterback in Gunnar Watson. You got a solid offense overall with running back Kamani Vidal and wide receiver Barber. Then this Troy defense, led by linebacker Jaden McDonald and defensive end Javon Solomon, can they slow down this App State team? I mean, App State, obviously, you know what? This is a team that you got to pay attention to. They barely lost on the road to North Carolina earlier this year. This was a team that knocked off James Madison a couple of weeks ago from the undefeated ranks. So for quarterback Joey Aguilar, you know what? He's not going to be phased by going up against Troy. You got running back Nate Noel, and then defensively, you got a crew over there for the Mountaineers. Linebacker Andrew Parker Jr., outside linebacker Nate Johnson, and then cornerback Tyreek Funderburg. They are going to give Troy all that they can handle and then some. But I like the Trojans at home by the score of 34-21. Now, Saturday night in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium, you got second-ranked Michigan set to get it on with 16th ranked Iowa for the Big Ten championship. Michigan comes into this contest favored heavily, and like I talked about it after they beat Ohio State last Saturday, I really felt that the winner of that game would have a free pass, if you will, to the college football playoff, and I'm going to stand by that. I mean, Iowa, it's a good story. They're looking to derail the Michigan Express, but you have to understand something about the Big Ten. Ever since they went to the East-West format 10 years ago, the West has never won this game. This contest, for the most part, has been dominated by Ohio State and Michigan. You had one Michigan State win in there and one Penn State win in there, but with the exception of that, it's been all Buckeyes and Wolverines. And for Iowa, they have one of the better defenses in the nation, and they've been able to rely on that all season long, as only Penn State was able to score more than 20 points against the Hawkeyes this season. But their offense is last in the nation in total yards. That ain't going to cut it against the Wolverines. Michigan is getting Jim Harbaugh back on the sidelines for this one. I guarantee you it's probably going to be 70-30 in favor of Michigan as far as the fans go. This team ran through a wall for Jim Harbaugh when he wasn't there. It's going to be even worse now. The khaki pants, as a lot of people like to refer to him as, is back on the sidelines. Michigan, it's one of those, once you get past Ohio State, nobody from the West in this league is going to slow you down. And Michigan just has the better team. There's no other way around it. I take the Wolverines to roll in this one by the score of 37-10. And finally, in Charlotte on Saturday night, you got the fourth-ranked Florida State Seminoles taking on 14th-ranked Louisville for all of the marbles in the Atlantic Coast Conference. The Noles only come into this contest favored by 1.5 points over Louisville. And I think Florida State, in my opinion, continues to be disrespected. I don't think that people are talking about it enough. I know that Florida finished the season with a losing record. I totally understand that. But to go in your rival's house and come back after you were dominated so much so early with a quarterback in Tate Rodemaker who is trying to get his footing as he's looking to replace Jordan Travis is big. Florida State still has a darn good team. Florida State, you don't go undefeated in the regular season in college football, regardless of what conference that you play in. If you're not a good team, but obviously, the ACC doesn't stack up to the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the SEC or the Big 12 this season. I totally get it, but you still got to give Florida State respect. And you got a darn good team. You got Jared Verse, you got Kalen DeLoach defensively, and then the running game with Trey Benson. And can these wide receivers and Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson help out the youngster at quarterback? That's going to be big. Now, for Louisville, they're looking to get back on track after they were upset at home last week against Kentucky. And for the Cardinal to go out there and pull off this upset, it's all about their running game. Jawar Jordan and Isaac Guerrero. Can they take some of the pressure off of Louisville quarterback Jack Plummer? Jack Plummer's been up and down this season. He has a bugaboo with the turnovers at time. And if he does not play a perfect game, it's going to be very difficult for Louisville to go out there and pull off the upset. Florida State's only favored by 1.5 points or a point and a half in this one. I guarantee you Mike Norvell is preaching that to his team as nobody's respecting us. But I'm going to take the Noles in this one on Saturday night by the score of 27-21. And I'll tell you like this. If Alabama wins, they are really going to throw a monkey wrench into the plans of the college football playoff. And I know that the folks in Texas are going to be screaming, saying, hey, what about us? But if you win the SEC and you knock off the top team in the land that hasn't lost a game in about 2 years, then guess what? Regardless if you're eighth, you got to move up. But nonetheless, those are my picks for conference championship weekend. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. And you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying take care. Thanks again. Have yourselves a wonderful day and enjoy all of the exciting action from Conference Championship Weekend here in the world of college football. Be well, everybody.